Call the Select Board meeting for Monday, April 22nd, 2024 to order, and as required by open meeting law, you're hereby informed that the town will be video and audio taping as well as live broadcasting this public meeting. In addition, anyone in the audience who plans to video or audio tape this meeting must notify the chair prior to the start of the meeting. Hearing nobody, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. We have public comments and announcements, but I'd like to start by welcoming newly elected Select Board member, Pete Pekarsky. Welcome. We're delighted to have you, finally to be 5. So.
Thank you, appreciate it. And if I could just take a second of your time.
Sure.
Obviously, I want to start by thanking my family, and more specifically my wife. She's been the greatest supporter of mine throughout all of this. And as you all know, it's impossible to do this without your family support, so I'm very grateful. Also like to thank the many friends and neighbors that supported me during this election and last year's election as well, and hopefully on the 21st. Time will tell that. And another thank you to the almost 300 or so folks who turned out on the 16th to cast their ballots. Their time and effort was greatly appreciated. Would also like to recognize Mary Anderson for her service to the town of Harwich, and more specifically her time here on the board. Again, to be commended. And I look forward to working with each and every one of you, including Joe, over the next 30 days, and again, hopefully after the 21st. But over these next 30 days, my goal is to better understand how each and every one of you operate in this role, again, including Joe and his subordinates. So appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Pete. Next on are our office hours. I'll let you take that one.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening to the public tuning in. Office hours with Select Board McCaskill, I believe, and myself will be held tomorrow night, Tuesday, April 23rd, 2023, from 5:30 to 7 p.m. in Room 3 at the Community Center. Hope you will come by and say hi.
Thank you, Jeff. Anybody else for public comments and announcements? Emily?
Good evening, Emily Mitchell, Town Clerk. On the topic of elections, our annual town election is quickly approaching. The date is May 21st, 2024, and I just wanted to remind folks that this Friday, April 26th, is the deadline to register to vote for both the annual town meeting and the annual town election. So it's one date, one deadline for both events. It is this Friday, and our office will be open until 5 p.m. for that purpose. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily.
Good evening, Cindy Williams, Executive Director of the Harwich Chamber. I just wanted to let you all know the new Harwich Magazine. I never know where the camera is, but here it is. It is in the office. It will be in Town Hall tomorrow. There are some at the Community Center, and it's all over the Cape, as well as throughout the state and Connecticut, Rhode Island, and New York this year. So enjoy.
Thank you, Cindy.
Good evening. My name is Anita Doucette. I am the president of the Harwich Historical Society, and I'm here to let the public know, and you know, that we have our annual meeting, which is going to be held on May 11th, and it's going to be held at the Brooks Library in their big meeting room in the basement. And our main speaker this year is going to be Duncan Berry, and he's going to talk about the Chase family of the town of Harwich. I just wanted to make everyone aware that that's going to be happening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anita. Yeah, that's
Sorry, one more thing. I got asked what time. I didn't have my glasses on. 1 o'clock.
1 p.m., okay.
Thank you.
Hello, Carolyn Carey, Community Center Director. Just a few things. We still have some events in April, but I did want to take an opportunity to just tell you about some of the upcoming events for May at the Community Center. The first one is on May 1st at 2 p.m. We have a local author, Yvonne D'Souza, who will be speaking. She has written 2 books and will be there. These are free events. The next one is we're having Family Fun Friday on May 3rd At 5:30 to 6:30, we'll have structured games, and then from 6:30 to 7:30, we're having open gym for families. Thank you, Eric. We have the Mother's Day craft on May 8th. We're making plates with glass. That begins at 5:30. Clearly, I'm not running that one, but we're having that. Then we're doing, in conjunction with Ashley Symington, we are doing a teen job fair. So if anyone, that is on May 9th from 4 to 8 p.m. If you are looking for a job as a teen, or if you have an establishment and would like to be hiring, please come join us at the fair. All of these are on the community center website, and if I say they're in the Chronicle, that makes Bill feel obligated, so they'll be in the Chronicle. Maybe not, but I tried. We are doing a community center garden cleanup on May 14th from 4:30 to 6:30 around the building. Everyone is welcome. We are having a literacy movement. We're talking, it's called A to C Literacy Movement. Clearly, I shouldn't be talking. May 16th at 2:30, another free event. Back by popular demand, we have the fairy doors. So we'll start on May 17th. There'll be a fairy door craft workshop. Try saying that 3 times fast. 5:30 to 7:30 at the community center. Another popular event, on May 18th, 9 to 2, outside the community center, you will see the shredding truck, which is free. I see some of you jotting that down. It is one of the most popular events, so please stop by 9 to 12 at the community center. How y'all doing so far? Then we are doing May 23rd at 5:30, a pet first aid class. This is with our own animal control officer. She's doing a whole series for us, so we're excited about that. And then on the 24th, Cape Cod Military Museum and Lecture is coming to do one of their programs for us, and we're so excited because the school has reached out and asked if they could bring a group of young adults. We're very excited. On May 29th, we have the Rocky Mountain National Park. This is somebody who has been there and gives tours, and she is going to be speaking about it. We will be hiding fairy doors all throughout the town of Harwich again. All that information, you can pick up your packet starting on the 13th, and the hunt starts on the 17th, and then we'll end with a fairy movie on the 31st. And let's see. We do have some other events, but I didn't have the posters ready, so I'll have to be back in front of you. So sorry. But all of these are on our website, and we are trying hard to meet everyone's needs. So thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else for public comment and announcement?
Madam Chair, you do have the Cultural Affairs Director.
Oh, right. Kara?
Good evening, Tara Malini, Director of Cultural Affairs. Welcome, Peter. Looking forward to working with you as well. I just wanted to come on to remind everyone that Art Week officially kicks off this Saturday. We had a great prelude to Art Week event last weekend with the Harwich HTN group, and we're looking forward to a great start of this week. So Saturday, April 27th, we do kick off with the Community Health and Environmental Fair. It is a multi-department whole event with multiple agencies coming in from around the Cape. And it's also Tour de Tract is going to be at the 204. So Tour de Tract is from 10 to 12, and the fair takes place from 11 to 3. There's going to be a lot of resources available for folks, in addition to some activities along the way. So in Arbor Day, so we're going to be giving away free seedlings to conservation. So a great program for all to enjoy. On Sunday, we have our thrift and flea market from 9 to 3. And then next week, our signature events that we're kind of specializing at the moment, our open mic with Cape Cod Poetry Review on Thursday, our abstract gallery exhibit opening on Friday the 3rd, spring market on the 4th, which is our large signature spring event, 10 to 4, similar to our holiday market All the studios will be open, additional activities and vendors will be available. And then we close out Art Week with community paint on the 5th from 1 to 3. All are welcome, all ages. You'll be painting a beach scene by the guidance of Bernadette Wastack. Some other things coming up at the 204, because I'll be back very soon, I'm sure, with more of the May programming, is that we have some great workshops coming to Studio 211, which is going to be a string quilting demonstration day, taste of ruler work, and those are with Adele Scott, that's Studio 211. And then on May 4th, we also have foundational mediumship organ training with Mary Glenn, who is a local resident in Harwich. She's going to be offering this program. It is a paid program that day. It's a private event that's going to be held in the library. And we also have Hammer and Stain Cape Cod coming in again to do a sea glass tree workshop on May 5th. All of the information can be found at the 204's website, so 204fission.com, and people are welcome to come swing by the building anytime, talk to me, hand them flyers, and show them around. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kara. Anybody else? Joe?
Madam Chair, just a reminder that the town, through the Select Board, is hosting a town meeting open forum on Wednesday, April 24th at 6 p.m. here in the Griffin Room. So again, that's the town meeting open forum, this Wednesday, 6 p.m., Griffin Room.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hearing nobody else for public comment. Oh, Don?
It's a point of information, Madam Chair, before we get to the consent agenda. I did inform the office, albeit verbally, about the March 19th minutes, and now I can get this into 2 minutes. I want to make the point that for the last 7 years, and most of you know this, I've been trying to secure a promise from Bob Sanborn to name something after Jimmy Marsline, as the tech school wouldn't have been possible without him. And so to make sure that we keep people honest about promises, I wanted it in the minutes that both I asked the question and he acquiesced that he anticipated naming a portion of the new agricultural facility after him, but it needs to be in the minutes so that we know that it was said. So I'm asking to just hold that back for one more meeting, and the statement that I have should be in this meeting's minutes.
So hold March 19th.
Just that and just those 2 sentences, really.
Those what?
But I want to see the sentences because this is really important to me.
Okay, did you email? I know that Danielle.
I talked to Daniel about it. I said, I asked the question, he promised he was going to name it.
Okay,
And it's not her fault. I mean, it just fell through the cracks.
okay. So we'll hold that one.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Don. I move that we approve the Select Board meeting minutes for March 25th, 2024, April 1st, 2024, April 8th, 2024, and April 10th, 2024.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Just a note, if you separate April 10, I can vote on that one. I can't vote on it.
Oh, right, yeah, okay.
I move, you want to withdraw that real quick?
Withdraw my second to withdraw April 10th.
Thank you. That's what I was going to make as a motion, so we're good.
Second.
Any second.
So at this point, we have the 25th, the first.
25th, 1st, and 8th, I
Right.
believe.
Michael, did he second that?
seconded,
Okay, moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Four,
Abstain.
so, four.
It's
I'm just used to saying
0-1.
Take me a little bit to get used to saying.
I move that we approve the Select Board meeting minutes for April 10th, 2024.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
5-0.
Thank you.
Public hearing and presentation, can you read the?
Absolutely, Madam Chair. Notice of public hearing, Harbor Management Plan. The Harwich Board of Selectmen, or the Harwich Select Board, will hold a public hearing on April 22nd, 2024, no earlier than 6 p.m. in the Don B. Griffin Room located at Town Hall, 732 Main Street, Harwich, for the purpose of reviewing proposed amendments to the Harbor Management Plan, Appendix A, Special Purpose Mooring Assignment. All members of the public having interest in this topic are cordially invited to attend. Remote participation is also offered. Please see posted agenda for dial-in information.
Thank you, Jeff. Public hearing, and John, do you want to join us?
Good evening, John Rendon, Harbor Master. I'm before you to request that you allow me to issue a special purpose mooring to Cape Cod Community Rowing. Per the Harbor Management Plan, special purpose moorings are in place for businesses or entities to promote boating. And Cape Cod Community Rowing has been present in Harwich, running their rowing program out of Long Pond for several years through the rec department. They have their boats east corner of Fernandez Beach area, and they approached me with a request to be able to have a safety boat that is in the water, ready to utilize when their rowers are on the water, instead of trying to launch every time at the ramp. So we have Representative Charlene Sones from Cape Cod Community Rowing who can speak specifics on the program if you'd like. But per the Harbor Management Plan, I have the authority to issue the permit, but because it's a special purpose that comes with some requirements, it has to go through the board. So,
Okay, thank you, John.
if there's any questions.
Do board members have any comments before I go to the public? Yep.
Hearing no, public first and then close
Yeah.
the public hearing?
Okay.
If nobody's
Yeah,
from the
so I'm
public,
gonna-
I'm ready for a motion.
Move to open the public hearing.
Second.
Well,
No, we already opened
We
it.
opened
We
the
need to
public,
Voted to
close
do
it.
that?
we opened the public hearing, so now I'm going to the
We
public to
announced
see.
it. Did we vote it?
Oh.
You have to vote to open a public hearing.
We opened the public hearing. Okay, officially, we'll take the vote to open the public hearing.
Second. He moved, I seconded.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Now, to the public, are there any comments from the public to this topic on the safety launch? Hearing nobody, I'll go to board members.
Move that we close the public hearing?
Thank you.
Second.
Moved and seconded to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Madam Chair?
Yep.
I move that we approve the amendment to the Harbor Management Plan Appendix A Special Purpose Mooring Assignment as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, John. And now we have a presentation by Karen Sonneborg of the Housing Production Plans Needs Assessment.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can, Karen. Can you just say your name for the public?
Absolutely. Karen Sonneborg, a housing and planning consultant. And when ready, someone could upload the presentation. I appreciate you including me on your agenda this evening. I looked at it and you have a busy one. I'm going to try to get through this brief presentation quickly. There's a lot of material and the document is on the town's website, I believe. Basically, we did a housing production plan in 2010 and another one in 2016. So this one is an update and bringing in more, updating information on demographics, economic characteristics and trends in housing, and allowing the town to really revisit its housing agenda. It's a part of the effort involved in updating the local comprehensive plan. And, tonight basically is a progress report on the first major part of the housing production plan, which is the housing needs assessment. Just to give you a sense on that 10% state affordability goal, Harwich is halfway there at 4.98%. And we're going to dig right into just some major demographic and economic trends. The town continues to grow. Almost 1,100 new residents came into the town between 2010 and 2021. Population projections suggest that the population will remain relatively stable through 2030 and then begin to decline somewhat. Continuing loss of younger residents and older ones. This is nothing new, happening throughout the Cape. And on the economic side, rising incomes, however, the median household income, this is based on 2021 US Census information, is $79,641, and that's still less than the 80% of area median income limit for a three-person household. 57% of households earn more than $100,000. This is twice the amount that earned in this range in 2010. There are still some folks who are really struggling on the Cape, earning less than $25,000, and includes 12% of all households. The average weekly wage of people who actually have jobs in Harwich was $1,116, which translates, if you're talking about somebody working full-time, year-round, to about $58,000. So comparing that to the median income of Harwich residents, you understand a lot of people who have jobs in Harwich can't afford to live in Harwich, particularly with housing costs that continue to rise. 13.5% of residents claimed a disability. And that's likely to grow as the population continues to age. Next slide. 61% of the housing stock predates 1980, and therefore some units will have lead-based paint hazards, which are a detrimental problem for young children, aging systems, and requiring some repairs. And plus, Harwich also is reliant many parts on septic systems. Limited housing production since 2010. Only 232 units were produced during that period. In the context of substantial teardown activity, between a third to a half of all new housing that's created involves demolition replacement activity. There was, and this is important, there was a loss of 284 year-round rental units since 2010, which is not a good trend. Owner occupancy has increased to 86% from 80% in 2010. 89% of units in single-family detached dwellings, limited diversity of various housing types in the town. Clearly, growth has focused on the owner-occupied housing stock and the seasonal or second home markets, where the seasonal units, say in 2010, or occasional units that include second homes, total 4,163 units. In 2020, it went down to 3,904. This is when the town and the Cape experienced an influx of folks escaping the pandemic. And then, since then, many of those folks have left or are going back to just part-time or seasonal residency, and the seasonal units, second home units, have gone up again to 4,390 as of 2021. This is the based on census records. Next slide. So just focusing on housing costs. The housing market has rebounded in the last few years. Economics 101, demand has outstripped supply, and housing prices have increased. This has been a time where there's been very limited housing inventory. While the median household income increased by 92% between 2000 and 2021, the median single-family home price increased by double that amount at about almost 200%, 195%. Widening affordability gaps. As of August 2023, the median house price, this is single-family house price, was $650,000. It went up to $670,000 as of the end of 2023. The $650 price required an income of about $160,200, and this is based on a number of assumptions such as 6.5% interest rate, 30-year fixed mortgage, 30% of income spent on housing costs, and 80% financing. So the affordability gap is an estimated $318,700, goes up to $338 some odd dollars if you look at the updated house price. And then this is based on the difference between the single-family house price and what a median income earning household could afford, or about $331,000. Market rents are high too, at least about $2,400 for a two-bedroom unit, and that would require an income of about $106,000, assuming you're also kind of looking at that affordability threshold of not spending more than 30% of your income on housing costs, and looking at average utility costs of about $250 a month. And it just look also comparing the median income of renter households. $106,000 is twice the median of $51,786. Not surprising, with rising costs and affordability gaps, more people are spending too much of their income on housing costs. And the typical threshold is used is that households shouldn't spend more than 30% of income on their housing costs. And if they are, they're considered to be experiencing cost burdens. And of all Harwich households, about a third had cost burdens, and 14% had what's called severe cost burdens because they were spending at least half their income on housing costs. If you look at households just earning at or below 80% of area median income, which is the threshold we typically use for eligibility affordable housing, 63% had cost burdens and 32% had severe cost burdens. And then next slide. Piecing all together in a summary, we've identified a few priority housing needs. First is a continuing focus on year-round rental housing. Once again, looking at those who are really struggling financially to stay in the community, those with really severe cost burdens, an attempt to further diversify the housing stock, providing more housing choices for residents to make up for some of the loss of rentals that have occurred over the last decade. And pragmatically, almost all state subsidies are directed to rental development. There might be some more flexibility and resources that come with the proposed Affordable Homes Act as part of the Governor's Housing Bond Bill. We'll see on that. And then also really long waits for subsidized housing. But home ownership, particularly first-time home ownership, is also a priority. For starter housing, trying to track the young families and workforce, as well as opportunities for households, older folks to downsize. Because of the age of the housing stock, we also suggest a need is to integrate handicap accessibility and supportive services into new development, the aging of the population also. Got that mixed up. So the support necessary for improvements based on the age of the housing stock, and then integrate handicap accessibility and support services as well as a priority housing need. And next step, last slide, next steps on where we are. So we have the first couple sections drafted, and we've held a number of community workshops and part of a survey of getting community and information. The next sections of the housing plan we've begun drafting, and that includes sections on challenges to producing affordable housing with accompanying mitigation measures and how to deal with those challenges, and a section on annual housing production goals. The town of Harwich has an annual goal based on the state requirements of 33 units per year, and that's based on 0.5% of the year-round housing stock. If the town actually produces 33 units in any year and documents it, it gets a 12 months where it's sometimes referred to as safe harbor. The community, the town can actually deny what it considers inappropriate comprehensive permit applications that don't address local needs. If it produces 66 units, it's a 2-year safe harbor, or a period where it can deny inappropriate comprehensive permit applications. And another section is probably the most important section, which is really the list of housing strategies that the town will plan as part of its housing agenda over the next 5 years. These plans have a 5-year period before they expire. And then we'll conduct another public forum to present the draft plan and obtain comments. We'll probably be meeting with various entities to present the plan as well. We will need, as before, approvals from the planning board and the select board before we can submit the plan to the state for approval. And we will have the draft materials as part of the town's website. So that's a lot of information in a short period of time. I tried to be brief, but there's a lot of detail in the document, and refer folks to that. And if there are any questions or comments, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Karen. Board members, any specific questions for Karen? Don?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's more of a suggestion. Somewhere in between what we're having tonight and before the public forum, I'd really dearly love to have a stakeholder forum, like not just the general public, but the Housing Committee, Housing Authority, the Housing Trust, and providers that would likely be engaged in dealing with that, whether that's Pine Oaks or HESH or Habitat or Community Development Partnership or HAC, just so that everybody's on the same page about where we're heading, and then go to the public, and then go to the planning board, so that there's some sort of orderly process to this that everybody gets a chance to weigh in on.
Thank you, Don.
That's terrific. That would be terrific. We'll do that.
And so just to follow up on that particular question, do you have an idea of when you're doing your next forum? Do you have a schedule in mind?
Well, I'm working on the update of those key sections now, and then I'll need to submit the draft to the local the local planning committee, and then we can plan these. It's probably good to kind of schedule them sooner instead of later. I like the idea of a stakeholder meeting. I've done that in other communities, and it does help with coordination and communication. I mean, obviously, implementation is the most important end product of any plan. So anything that gets people aligned and gives people an opportunity to further have weigh in on the plan would be great. And then we'll have a public forum. I'm hoping to have a draft of the next section done within the month. So we'll begin planning for sometime before the end of the spring. Well, yeah, end of the spring, early summer to do these forums.
Okay, great, thank you.
Does that work?
Yeah, that just gives us, I was just looking at the timeline in terms of having such a meeting and having time to do that. So it sounds like if you're
Yeah.
going to have something in a month or so, that would give us enough time to start trying to figure out when we could have something prior to that forum. Pete, did you have anything?
No, same question, so thank you.
Okay. Jeff?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for your presentation. I completely support Select Board Member Howell's suggestion to have more stakeholder forums, because the more I am involved in this housing crisis, the two oppositions that keep coming up is density and zoning. And I think, thank you for putting both of those strategies in your packet here. I think I read both of those strategies in here, and as many people have said before, construction of single-family homes is of low value to this problem that we have right now. But the public, I think, needs to be more informed and more in touch with the projects that are going to be going on in Harwich, in hopes that there would be less opposition to the projects that hopefully can get started. So that's all I'd have to say.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Michael?
I have nothing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Don?
Thank you, Madam Chair. While I still have you here, I'm just wondering how you're dealing with something that's a generational conundrum. Generationally, before we got involved with affordable housing with the capital A, you bought a starter house, you acquired equity, you collected the equity, you sold your house, you moved up a step. But it's different with affordable housing because you're constrained by how much equity you can take out when you vacate that and move on. How have other communities handled that? Because there's kind of a notch out now that didn't exist about 30 years ago.
Well, not really a part of the Cape, but there are some communities where, there is still some relatively accessible housing based on costs. What's the major issue is that land costs so much, and so you're going to build a house, and under zoning, you're kind of stuck with these big houses. And so to build affordable housing, you need to have subsidies. Subsidies come with constraints and regulation. And so there are limits on how much equity you can build in home ownership. I have seen, though, the formula for resale are based on changes in HUD area median income limits. So the idea is that they keep that unit affordable for as long as possible. So you can call out some equity, but it's limited. I've seen houses in the last few years, people get equity of $30,000, $40,000. Not piddling, but it's not like a market deal. I don't know how you get around that if you're going to involve subsidies, and you have to be based on their rules. The other way of doing it is to have various income tiers in a particular project, so you have different ranges of incomes, but they still come with deed restrictions. It's a reality of the affordable housing field. And then there's rentals too. So and they don't come with those kinds of benefits, any kind of equity, but they're important to addressing local housing needs.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. I don't have any questions. You've covered quite a bit of content for us here. That the numbers are always daunting. And
Yeah.
to your point, we need to get more creative in different approaches to help those for affordable housing, but also those in the middle that fall through those cracks. So thank you very much, and we'll work on creating a stakeholder meeting, and we'll touch base with you in terms of your schedule, probably towards the end of this month, while we try to put something together.
Thank you very much. That would be very helpful.
Right, thank you. Thanks for joining us this evening.
Gotcha. Bye now.
Bye-bye. On to new business.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that we approve the Community Rating System, the CRS, National Flood Insurance Filing.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Joe?
And we would imagine inherent in that is authorizing the chair to sign the application?
Yes.
Part of your motion.
That was in my motion.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
So no discussion, correct? All in favor?
Quick question, if I could, sorry.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
Just want to make sure I was on the right topic. And I don't know if the appropriate parties are here or not, and nonetheless, I'll ask the question. So I noticed under some mitigating actions, number 4, it talks about low-lying roads as the high-risk areas in town, which I'm sure they are. But is that the only thing that's been identified thus far? Are there other areas in town, not low-lying roads, that are high-risk? Or, I forget the exact language in here, but most at risk?
Oh, the flood maps would dictate that, the
But has anything else been identified, or is it strictly low-lying roads, or are we not sure?
Good evening, Christine Flynn, Town Planner. There have been other areas identified at risk for flooding, so yes,
Okay.
in answer to your question.
Okay, so although this really talks about the low-lying roads, those other areas have been identified, and mitigation,
Mitigation strategies are ongoing,
Excellent,
so
thank
for
you.
this report, we just identified what was most recent.
perfect, thank you. And when it talks about number 14, which I think is the harbor master perhaps, it talks about the advanced weather equipment requested. It isn't there. Has there been a request for advanced weather equipment, or just it's not needed?
So, John, do you want to join us?
I think we did, I think all of the funds that had been requested were funded for the,
Right,
for the
just whatever,
communications, so.
However I read it, it talks about no additional advanced weather equipment has been procured or installed. So I didn't know if it was requested and not approved, or it just wasn't requested because it's not needed.
Yeah, we didn't, I think, the internet and all that we are provided through the internet service. We have the weather up constantly, and, I think it has what we've needed. We did update some of our long whip antennas, so we got a longer range weather via VHF. We did do that, but we didn't go and spend a lot of money on getting high-end anemometers and wind-type issues. Yeah.
And I'm not saying you needed to, I just
Yep.
wanted to see if it was requested. And
Yeah, we put that in there, I don't know, quite a long time ago, and we've kind of gotten to the point where I think we're good, yeah.
And if I could, while you're still there,
Sure.
Madam Chair.
Sure.
25 talked about the expansion of Witchmere Outer Harbor, and that's no longer on the table. Is that something no longer desired, not feasible?
Well, we talked about trying to dredge that area to expand the mooring field a bit. But I think, there just was other projects that I thought were more important, and that's a huge, huge dollar value with permitting and environmental concerns, and so, and I just don't think it was worth it, I had it on our capital plan, I don't know, 10 years ago or so, and I just think we had other priorities. Yeah.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
All right, you're welcome.
Madam Chair.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Christine.
Thank you.
So we've got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. 5-0, Joe. Next item. Discussion on the open projects related to Brooks Academy. Oh, thank you. And put this back on, you had asked, and I
Yes,
just wanted
thank you.
the public to understand as
Absolutely.
well. So We've also got Sean Libby here.
Excellent. Thank you.
And,
I'll give a recap.
Sure.
If I may, Madam Chair. At our last meeting, I believe, the question of Brooks Academy was raised, and I believe Select Board Member McCaskill made a point that there's still approximately $1 million+ in the Brooks Academy account, so to speak. 600 and some odd dollars is from CPC money. The remainder is potentially usable. I simply just would like to understand a little bit more about what is usable right now, what is specifically allocated for exterior work. I'd like to understand if there is a plan for beginning this exterior work, just some information as to what that million, it's a lot of money. And I'm just interested in knowing what that $1 million, what the plan for that is, so.
So in that regard, I think, yeah.
If I could
Sure,
start
go
on
ahead.
behalf of our facilities maintenance manager, he'll rescue me as needed. The reference to $1 million+, I'd ask Sean if he has available numbers on article balances. However, as you've mentioned, the preponderance of that is related to Article 27 from the 2023 annual town meeting. So that's the CPC funds, $690,000. And it contemplates both exterior work and potentially, exterior work including windows and potentially storm windows, as the article talks about. With regard to the plan and next actions, I think the concerns are, knowing that the capital request that was provided through capital outlay this year, in the very beginning, it talks about compiling projects that were previously stretched out across fiscal years '24 through '27 will save costs. And those savings that we expect are related to architectural services, owner's project manager, and others, where if we do this, for lack of a better phrase, as piecemeal, we're going to be spending those costs for each project. The other concern with the exterior work is there is a request to have a lift and other things added, and I'll leave it to Sean to help me out with it, but the concern would be if we do the exterior work and then we progress to the other projects, we're now impacting upon the exterior work that was done. And that may also include windows. So I couldn't speak directly tonight to the $1 million plus per se. I don't know if Sean can, but I know the vast majority of it is CPC related. We got that last year, so we're still in the window to use it. And as you know, CPC is very particular about the use of those funds. So we, the town, cannot imagine using them for anything other than what was identified. And then lastly, I think what was included in the omnibus request, as I'll call it, the 1.16, is we're not convinced, so when I say we, me and staff, but starting with me as procurement officer, not convinced that the $690,000 will be sufficient for those projects as we envision them back in 2023. So there's an expectation that we'll need additional funds.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah.
And then, Sean, if you would just explaining, so that, obviously, that the public understands that the consolidation was to help defray costs.
Absolutely.
Right.
So, following the town meeting last year in August, I went to Joe and said, you know, I first of all, I don't think the 690 is going to cover it for the siding, just based off the square footage that we did at the library, which was 1,200 square foot larger, and it cost $700,000 to do that without architectural or OPM fees. When you add that on top of it, just for the foundation, we paid over $275,000 for those services. On top of that, sequentially doing the work, if you know you've got a project and it's going to encompass more than what's in the plan, you know, you always have a critical path, things that need to be done first. Point in case is we did the foundation, and now we have to dig up that same foundation to put in this lift. Makes no sense financially, or it makes no sense time-wise. It doesn't make any sense to me at all. So I believe that this is pretty self-explanatory. I don't want to run into the same thing with the siding, because where that lift is going, you have a door that door's coming out and siding's going up. If your lift isn't there, that's a potential plan, then are you putting the siding in the right spot? Are we gonna put it in the doorway? We don't know. We haven't hired that architect yet. So you gotta have a plan before you start.
Oh, that makes sense, obviously. Other questions from board members?
If I could just follow up, Sean, thank you. That's very helpful, very clear. So there's $690,000. Is that the total balance of this?
For that article.
For that
That's
article.
$690 for the siding and windows.
Yep.
And then we have $322 left in the sinking fund, which was, I forget which article it was.
And that's okay if you don't have that?
Yeah, but it's 322 left remaining.
Okay.
From the 475, I believe, that was approved at town meeting.
And what's is the plan just to pool all the money together for us to get a much better plan of attack to then work our way through this building that's so important?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you. Michael, did you have anything?
I defer to Don.
Don?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's actually going to be analogous to what I said earlier. I kind of feel like we're chasing our tail. Not you, but I mean just the government. You got a Brooks Academy Commission. It's not a committee, it's a commission. It's under state law. They have jurisdiction over the building. You have administration, you have the Board of Selectmen, or the Select Board, and you got the capital outlay plan. I wasn't planning on bringing that up, but to my knowledge, the capital outlay committee never voted to zero out this project. In terms of process, why the heck wouldn't we all get together so that we're all traveling in the same direction at the same moment instead of revisiting stuff? It just doesn't make any sense. It's chaotic. Why go back over and do something over again when we could have the opportunity to sit down and kind of rationally discuss, all right, we're here.
Are you asking me?
No, just rhetorically.
Because I would say I agree with you and I have no idea.
Okay, well, that's my point. If we're going to be doing this, it has to have some process that makes some sort of sense where everybody that has something to do with it is in the same room at the same time on the same agenda and starts at the same point so that we know where we're going. Because like I said, I'm concerned that the capital outlay plan was not amended by the capital outlay committee. It just came to us through the town administrator with a zero on it. And I don't know that the Brooks Academy Commission has ever really been deeply involved, except for being told they couldn't be in the building for a period of time because it was being built on. This would make a whole lot of sense if the wagon was being pulled by the horses in the same direction.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So Don, to that point, and I got some information a little while ago, I agree with you 100%. I think there needs to be a much better plan of attack for this building. As Sean said, if we're putting in a lift and we got to dig up a foundation that we just dug up, that's an absolute waste of money. But I see here, Brooks Academy renovations, and you can help me with this if I'm off, but from fiscal year 24 to 28 was as follows. Fiscal year 25, the ask was for $175,000. In fiscal year 26, the ask on the capital plan was going to be $350,000. Does this sound, is this familiar to you?
Those are some numbers that were thrown out.
In fiscal year 27, it was another $350,000. Fiscal year 28, it was zero, for a total of $875,000, which, if I'm hearing you correctly, doesn't get us too far, even with the monies that we have in bank already. I mean, if fiscal year 25, the ask was $175,000, I don't see.
Yeah, that came from the commission. It did not come from me. But
Oh,
I
I'm
do
sorry.
have those numbers in front of me.
Okay, so that was a commission ask.
Correct.
Not a Sean Libby ask.
Correct. My first one I put in was this past year.
Now I'm understanding this a little more clearly, and I thank you for that. And for fiscal year 26, the 350, and fiscal year 27, the 350, fiscal year 28, the zero, none of those were your asks.
They were not.
Those were commission asks.
Yes.
So to your point, Don, there is no question
We need everybody together.
that we are not doing this right. From 30,000 feet straight down to the dirt, there has been no true plan for this building to get this building up and running and healthy again. And I, for one, would like to see that start sooner rather than later. Develop a plan. have the commission with you, with us, however we need to do it. Because we're missing, everybody is spending an awful lot of time. And the target is getting missed by every standard and measure. So that's where I sit with this. I wish I had this information a couple of weeks ago when I thought I knew what I was talking about, but I guess at that point, I didn't. So, thank you.
Pete, did you have anything?
Yes, at this point, regardless, the $1 million or whatever the number is, are we at a standstill at this building?
Yes.
We are. So regardless how much money we have, we don't even have the plan. Do we have a comprehensive engineering report of that building?
We do.
And so was there a strategic plan laid out by either an architect or our OPM or somebody?
No, it was not really that. It was a list of recommendations that we could do to the building, and we're only doing part of it. It was picked and choose through it.
Yeah, and who provided us with that list?
BIA Studio Architectural Planning,
So the architect, okay.
not the ones we've been using.
And
So this will
probably-
be architect number 4 that we're going through, which adds to my frustration,
Sure.
because one architect may not agree with the other architect.
Absolutely. And we probably don't want an architect telling us which order to repair the building. All right, so it sounds like we need to develop a comprehensive plan, back to your point.
Absolutely.
And try to get this thing in a trajectory that is agreeable to everyone, including the
We also, yeah, and we also have the fact that we have the architect that was contracted to submit for the variances to the Architectural Access Board. So we have to also wait to hear what the Architectural Access Board will or will not allow, because there may be variances we're seeking that they will not grant.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In fairness, the state won't grant such a request unless we demonstrate that we have a plan setting aside money for that. So that's not the first step. It's probably the last step after you figure out what the grand plan is. And I guess my point's getting lost here. The Capital Outlay Committee also approved of this in the segments that it was requested. So we're not communicating with each other. It should all be together. We don't get to say at the end, I'm sorry, I don't like what happened. We have to come up with a mechanism like a cross-posted meeting where we're all together and we have some sort of idea where we're heading. And I totally agree with you, Jeff. I mean,
And I'm in agreement with you. So,
Sean?
Yes.
that'd be the other guy.
So I believe some of the numbers that we're talking about at this point, then when we get to the 1.1, that was the original discussion point that we got to, I think we have a gap in there that hasn't been voted by capital outlay, but I don't have my calculator, so I'm not sure if that's accurate. Michael?
Thank you
ahead.
for coming tonight. So you had requested through town administrator, or the two of you had brought forward, instead of the 875, that we would spend 1.160 million this year, per your recommendation, to have the project make sense. We've had at least 3 meetings where we've discussed this, and the town administrator, when the whole conversation came up about putting things back on the capital plan, it has made no sense to me whatsoever until you stepped in and said, we need more money to do the actual project. We just didn't have the money this year. So the recommendation was made that we put it on fall town meeting after we get a recertification of free cash, and hopefully we'll have the money there. It was never the intent of this board, and people can say it as much as they want, but I've been back and reviewed the meeting. We planned on bringing it in the fall, hopefully having a recertification of free cash, which, by the way, for the critics of that, we've done that many times in the past. Recertified free cash and had a fall town meeting where we spent money. So thank you publicly for putting something together that makes sense. And to Don's point, we do need to have a meeting with the commission. But if the commission, and I know David Spitz had been working on this and putting these numbers together with the architect, I don't ever recall them asking to have a meeting with us to go over this. And as far as restoring the capital plan, town administrator, who has taken a beating lately in the paper and, I'm not allowed to say it, but I'll say it tonight, social media site, sat here and said that it doesn't matter to him one way or another whether we put it back on or not. But based on this little conversation, it makes no sense to put it back on the capital plan at $175,000 this year, which we've already decided we don't have the money for, and then $350 and $350. It makes absolutely no sense without having a meeting and coming up with a number that makes sense. And we can change the capital plan at an annual town meeting by 2/3 vote. So why aren't we doing what 2 select board members and then concurred by 3 and having a meeting with our professional who's trying to save the town money rather than sitting in the back seats throwing stones at everybody that's trying to help this building?
Yeah. And we also talked about the capital plan at length when we went about why we would go forward with the recommendation to go zero it out and then return at fall town meeting. So we appreciate all the work that, I see you, Don, and I will call on you, but I'm in mid-sentence. So, sorry, John, I just wanted to say thank you for coming and compiling all that information. To Michael's point, you've done a lot of work, and it's been for the benefit of the building, the town, and the commission, and we appreciate that. Don?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not really interested in drawing this out or making it contentious, but the fact of the matter is, the amount of free cash that we have is not handed down by the state from on high. It's requested from us. When that capital plan was put together, we had an understanding that it was going to be considerably higher than what it got approved for at this DOR. We requested that amount. At some point or other, we probably should have been alerted long before this became a controversy that whatever the pretext was for that capital plan to address the Brooks Academy was short on money because we didn't ask for free cash to be certified at the level that would have allowed us to have the money to spend at this town meeting. So there's a lot going wrong here. It's not just that the Brooks Academy didn't cooperate properly with us. We just need to pay attention to what we're doing and understand the ramifications that one party doing one thing changes what other parties are able to do, and we haven't done that.
So, I think,
Wants to speak.
thank you, Sean.
Hi, I'm Lynn Zalazek, Brooks Academy Museum Commission. First off, I want to say thank you to Sean for everything he's done. He's an amazing man. Secondly, I'd like to say that I would really love to have a meeting with everybody. Frankly, David Spitz did all of the planning, and I've come in his position since he has resigned from the board, and I'm a little out in left field as to everything as well. And considering the history of this building and the importance of this building to the town, we really need to get it up and going again. If for no other reason than the fact that we are coming into a very historic time of importance to the country, and Harwich played a huge part in that, even though it was not in the major forefront. It was still huge. People are going to be coming to town to do research on their families who were involved, and as of right now, we're over 400 soldiers that came from Harwich that fought in the American Revolution. Plus, we have our archives. We have a huge history concerning the cranberry industry in this country. All of that stuff, the society got boxed up in the museum. It needs to be out. The museum needs to be used. And we all need to get our heads together to figure out what we have to do to get it going again. And the longer it waits, the more deterioration is going to happen. So,
I think you heard from this board this
Right.
evening that, we do agree with you,
And
and we'll have a meeting.
wholeheartedly love to have a meeting with everyone.
I think it's a good idea.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Linda Sabula, Harwich Port. The concept, or to me, new information of digging up the foundation to put in the lift, if we could have a little more clarification on that, because I thought the whole point of putting in the foundation was that it was then going to be ready to put in a lift/elevator, whatever. So I'm a little surprised that it's not ready to have a lift put in, and we're going to have to dig something up again, and that's a little disconcerting. And it sounds like somehow money was wasted again. So I'd appreciate some clarification on that, ma'am.
Thank you, Linda. I don't know that, Sean, I don't know that you have information on that, so I don't mean to put you on the spot.
No. The only thing I can say is that it was not the case. The only thing they did was dig up the old dirt area and put a foundation there. So it was never planned because we didn't know where we were going to put the elevator because we didn't hire an architect to tell us.
Okay. Thank you.
Good evening, Duncan Berry, talking about this building. Thanks so much, Cindy. Quick note about the elevator. It's my recollection as a member of the society that we had an exemption for an elevator from Americans with Disability Act to a certain window, certain period of time. So over the course of COVID, we kind of lost the thread in a couple of these things. What I wanted to make my personal statement was that it's my understanding that thread was lost. We lost an opportunity to be exempt from having to put in, tens of thousands of dollars to redo the foundation, put in an elevator. We lost that chance. I would think that ought to be one of the things that we ought to reconsider in an application for an exemption as we go ahead, because we may not need an elevator if we can, demonstrate the criteria that are being met for historic preservation in the building. That's number one. Number two is, as such, given the price of commodities going up, building materials, labor going up, COVID, this has been we're all on the same page. We shouldn't be bidding each other up. As long as we, I think the people in the society, we're concerned that we don't want to get, lost in a checkbox from one document to another. That's the big concern, because it's, this is the important part of the face of the town for us. So, we all want to be on the same page. So let's play together here. Thanks.
Agreed. Thank you, Duncan.
Hi, folks. Diane DeGennaro of the Garden Club of Harwich. I just wanted to alert you to the fact that we too are stakeholders and are waiting patiently for this project to get underway because we feel strongly that we want to be able to help with the landscaping of the building and keep it within a very historical context. So the Garden Club was gifted an inheritance from a local woman, and we thought it would be a great use of that money to set aside some of it to help with the landscaping costs and develop a landscaping proposal. So at a later date, once we get the funding and the building done, we would like you to consider that we have a plan developed by some members in our club for landscaping the outside, and we've dedicated money to do that. If the irrigation is then up and running. Otherwise, it would be a waste of our money. So we really, really encourage your idea of coming together and getting everybody in on figuring out how to make this happen as quickly as possible. So when we get closer, we'd love to come before you and show you the plan for the landscaping.
That'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Maybe they'll save me for last, but Jeff, I really want to thank you for bringing this up. Thank you, Don. Thank you to the entire board for supporting this project. The history of this town means a lot to me personally. Granted, I am not a Cape Codder. However, I've spent a lot of years with the history of this place, and we've got a great board, we've got a great society now, we've got a lot of members that really are working together that we want to bring Harwich onto the map. And so I guess I just wanted to thank you very much for your support. I like the idea of all of us being able to work together, and hopefully we can get this through town meeting and go forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anita. Any other conversation?
Just to say one thing, Madam Chair, and, you know, I am truly sorry this took several meetings to get to this point, for all of us to figure out that we need to meet, develop a strategic plan, and then begin to put that plan into motion. So I think I sit comfortable where the board is right now, and where the public is, and where the commission is, and I think I would love to have a date in the next week, Madam Chair, if we could, to get a date on the calendar where we could all get together after town meeting and begin the process sooner rather than later.
Well, we'll be talking about this tomorrow in our
Oh, yeah,
agenda
that's
building
right.
meeting,
Thank you.
so.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Bobby Pa. How you doing? I'm not really savvy on all the stuff here and these terms that get thrown around. My concern is, I understand what you're saying is we need to get together and talk about a plan. Right, so that's good. Part of that, isn't there an ADA person in town?
Yeah, so
Would that person be included because of?
all departments will be
Yeah.
included, and including
deal.
the Brooks
And-
Academy.
And the landscaping stuff and all that, everybody get together. So my question is, gonna have this get-together powwow plan with the people that are involved, but it has to be voted in the fall, 2/3 to approve, so it's not for sure that work is gonna get done. Is any work gonna get done between now and the fall? Any actual works, scraping, sanding, any of that?
So what we're going to do is meet to come up with a comprehensive plan.
Right, I got that.
As Sean has indicated. There would be no point in attempting to do other work that we
Exactly.
may be, you know,
You can't just jump, you gotta have this
Exactly.
plan first.
So-
But is it possible, I'm saying, that you get together, you make a plan, but nothing physical actually gets done until the fall vote, that maybe 2/3 of the people say, you know, they're not gonna approve it now?
so you can always go back to the next year's capital plan, which that will already start talking about the next year's capital plan, which would be technically FY '26, the way the fiscal years run. And so that money would then be slated for the following year. It's not going to be abandoned. The case is, right now, there are monies, as you've heard, about
So the
$865,000.
board is actually assuring the public, this will, no matter what the vote is, this is gonna get paid for.
Right, and so what we're trying to do is make sure, as Sean pointed out earlier, we don't want to be trying to put in an elevator after the fact of
I
doing all
get-
this
I
other
get all
work,
that.
right? So you get that
And
part?
I'd follow Sean down to Davy Jones' locker. He's my master chief.
Right, so that's all we're trying to do, is to do something where we're not wasting money, and that we're doing it in a methodical way, so that we do it once and do it well.
So part of the thing that didn't get answered yet, between now and the fall, other than a plan and any physical work gonna be done,
No, not right now,
No.
not until we come up
Thanks,
with
that's
figuring
all I
out the
asked.
plan. Okay, so next item.
I move that we approve a change of manager, application for the Belmont Condominium Beach, DBA The Beach, 1 Belmont Road.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0.
I move that we approve a special permit application for a one-day wines and malt permit for Jessica Gomes, The Bearded Wire, event to be held on May 11th, 2024, 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. at 554 Route 28, Unit 14.
Second.
It's
But he
beaded.
said beaded, not bearded, right?
No, he said bearded, but it's beaded.
I believe I
Slip of the
said,
tongue.
Just wanted to make sure.
well, clearly nobody's been to The Bearded Wire, other than myself.
I've made
You-
purchases at
okay.
the beaded wire.
Well, then I meant to say The Beaded Wire, event
Wherever
to be...
you go is your business.
Thank you, Michael. So do we have a second on The Beaded Wire?
Second, yes.
Thank you.
Any discussion? All
Any
in
more
favor?
discussion?
Aye.
Aye.
5-0.
I move that we approve a special permit application for a one-day wines and malt permit for David M. Cravajeno, event to be held on June 8th, 2024, 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. at the 204 Sisson Road.
Second.
Moved and seconded.
Corvino.
Cravajeno,
Corvino.
thank you.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
5-0.
I move that we approve a 2024 annual class.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I move that we approve a 2024 annual Class 2 used auto license renewal for Good Sons Motor Cars, Inc., 210 Queen Anne Road, Unit 12.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
5-0. Thank you, Don. And now we'll have Eric.
Hi, Eric Beebe, Recreation Director. I'm here tonight to seek your approval for a new pilot program or service that we'd like to provide Harwich residents this summer. It's our kayak rack program. This would be in our pilot program, we're going to have 2 kayak racks constructed by DPW for people to rent those racks during the season to keep their kayaks at 2 of our beaches to start, including Sand Pond and Cahoon's Beach on Long Pond. The racks would hold 6 to 8 kayaks per rack. They would bring their own locking mechanism, chain, and lock. It'd be $100, what we're proposing is a $100 fee from May 15th to October 15th to cover the shoulder seasons as well. They would receive a sticker that would match the sticker on their kayak slot. And we're basing this off of a similar program in Wellfleet and Brewster, and it's been very successful there. They started small, grew as it got more and more popular. So this is what we're looking to do, and I'd be happy to answer any questions on it.
Thank you, Eric. Do any board members have any questions on the kayak rentals? I was at one of your rec commission meetings, and I know that it was well received.
Oh, yeah. And just so you know, I also went to Conservation, picked out spots with Amy Usowski where it's allowed to be.
And I also saw in your material that obviously anyone who did this also had to have a beach sticker.
Yes, yep.
Don?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just briefly, because these things are always based in part, well, not in part, in large measure on costs to the town when you do fees. We're responsible for liability if there's something sitting on our property, isn't that true?
There is a liability waiver that's attached.
So they're
to
going to
this.
sign that in
Yep,
order to
yep,
put it in?
they've signed that, yep, before.
So the 100 just goes to our administration of it, not for any kind of underlying liability?
Yes.
Can I,
Sure.
did that indemnification go to council?
I believe it was actually provided by our insurance provider, Maya, and they work with the council there.
Okay.
Any other board member questions? Michael?
I move that we approve the request from Recreation for kayak rack rental fees as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
5-0.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric.
Now, discussion on the select board goals and objectives. So I shared the past several years document that we have used and asked you all to just take a look and either make comments, suggestions, revisions, edits, additions, deletions, etc. So this is really just to have our first, did you want me to pass these on?
Yeah, please.
Can I have one?
Thought you had one.
Thank you. And Jeff, you sent me your list, and so this is really just start the conversation. Pete, I hope you got it. Did you get the list of?
I got it today, so I'll do some more homework on it. but
Yeah.
I took a quick look at it.
Take a look at it. Go ahead, Don.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Without getting into the merits of that list, I mean, and I've said this before, but I really feel strongly now, given where we are in terms of the town and management thereof. I agree with Michael about deliverables. I mean, you got to be able to measure certain things. I mean, town administrator is responsible for a building getting done by next year is a deliverable. I get that. But when you get a preponderance of these things, you kind of lose the forest for the trees. What I just handed out, because it wasn't about your list, we have not aligned position standards with a position description. These are things that go from year to year. It doesn't matter what the new project is, what the old project was, but things that are necessary in order for us to know that we're getting the kind of management we want and we can actually assess objectively each year. I'm not going to go over these. I just handed it to you because you're talking apples and I'm talking oranges. I mean, I could go for something, although I will say when you get to the point where everything's as important as everything, nothing's important anymore if you get like 12, 15, 18 goals, because it's impossible to track them effectively with rank priority. I'm saying that I think if you're going to be utilizing this to do a performance appraisal, you really need both. You really need, what is it that if you, without which you do in a given year, not project-wise, but conduct and performance, that even if you happen to be successful on a particular objective, you're still not successful in managing. So I would love to have that larger discussion about, how to blend particular major objectives and goals and blend them in with a position standard, which other levels of government use, by the way. Federal government, state government, I participated in that in the federal government when developing position standards. So I'm really passionately advocating when we go back into this and have a real big, deeper dive, that we have a discussion as a bigger thought, that it's not just that matrix list that you mailed to us, there's something else that we're missing.
So just to be clear, though, this is not my list. This is the list we've used for the last
Totally get it.
5 whatever years. I've lost count of how many years. But I wouldn't disagree that, I think we've always found this matrix, it was helpful to a certain degree, but, I also have looked at other towns just to see what everybody else is doing, because everyone does it differently. So, Brewster does something similar to the one we've been doing. And then I looked at Chatham, I looked at Dennis, started to look at Truro, and they do sort of a 2-pager, and they have subject matters, and I'll share what I have found to see what your opinions are on, maybe we change the format, but I think more importantly is, to your point, the content and how we define it. And I think we all talked about over the years, trying to not have it be so all-encompassing.
And I do want to reemphasize that I am absolutely not talking about one supplanting the other, because Michael has been saying this for years. You got to be able to objectively assess a deliverable, something that has a beginning, a middle, and an end, that it gets completed so you know that it's done. So this is not mutually exclusive. I'm just pitching that there's something else going on that we're missing.
Right. Thank you, Don. Pete, did you have any?
I think Michael's gonna.
Oh, Michael?
No, go ahead. Well, my 2 comments, and again, I didn't have a chance to really go over it in any great detail, but I think somewhat of what Don was saying, these goals and somewhat of a past practice in my background that have been termed as SMART goals, right? I don't necessarily agree with the acronym in its entirety, but if they're not measurable, if they're not realistic, if they're not achievable, then we're wasting his time and ours. So why are we going to go through that exercise? Looking quickly at that list, it was pretty extensive, and again, I'm not sure I would term them as realistic, every one of them. Of course, if you were to weed out, 6 of them, they're all realistic, but when you put them as a comprehensive list, it becomes unrealistic. So I think that is where I'm going to focus on having something, at least my input to all of you, that is truly measurable, achievable and realistic for the TM to, or the town administrator to accomplish.
Thank you. Michael?
I agree with Pete. I think the actions and deliverables, for me at least, is it has been and it will remain to be one of the most important pieces. I don't want to create work just to create work.
Right.
And a lot of what's on here, there's other people assigned to it. And that was something, even with the actions and deliverables, I think one year it was past town administrator, I think it was 117 objectives. But the way it was spelled out was that it was a TA to assign. And given our current system, on review of the town administrator, we don't get involved in day-to-day business, and we're really not supposed to be talking to department heads. I know others disagree with me, but we can't really go to another department head and say, you know, what are your thoughts on the town administrator? Does he do his job? Does he not do his job? We're not supposed to get into that level. So me creating objectives with deliverables is, if it gets done by the police chief, he obviously delivered it and it got done by the police chief. If he gives Sean Libby a project and it's part of our goals and objectives, or an action and a deliverable, then we'll know that it got done. Because certainly, outside of our list is a town to run. And that's something that I certainly recognize how much work. Julie, I was gonna ask that we get an update on the procurement list, because that is one of the goals. So I'd love to get an idea of where we stand on that list, which was monumental, Pete. We had 60-something open projects by no fault of the current town administrator, just where it all ended up. But we had 60-something open projects that they've done a good job working through. To that point, it's been suggested more than once that we get other people doing the procurement. I think we could burn through the list, so that would be another action and deliverable by a department head, back to the town administrator, back to us, that shows that it gets done. Julie, we have in the past had we do go on to our summer schedule.
Right.
Where we're not meeting every week, but we always have the same conversation, is we still have plenty to do. But I would suggest that in June, when we go to that schedule, we set aside a Monday to have the selectmen's workshop, where we can actually have paper on a table and we can go through them and try and put this together, because Pete sending you his ideas and me mine, and format. This is just gonna, and I've been on the other side of this, whomever the chair may be next year, gets a whole bunch of stuff that doesn't make any sense, and then they have to take a shot at it, and then one or two may like it and the others may not, and then we'll go back to the drawing board. So the workshop, in my opinion, with the town administrator involved, to kind of show where we're at, makes a lot of sense to me.
I would agree with that, because I think, exactly to your point, I mean, every year we end up doing it differently and trying to consolidate, and it makes more sense, so. Don?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, this isn't at odds with what you're saying, it's in addition to, but we've had discussions tonight about process. We have 273 pages that we were handed on Friday. I'm saying that the way that we can successfully approach certain things has a lot to do with the process we're approaching it with. You've brought up the fact that there's some towns that the select board individual members go into the town administrator to find out what's going on. What do you see in the future? What are you seeing about the past? So that we're all up to speed and we have time to analyze what we're doing. That's pretty much where I'm coming from with this, because if the process is bankrupt, you're just kind of lucky if the conclusion winds up landing in the right spot. If they're both aligned, we're in a much better position to be able to govern here, because you're right, we don't go into everybody's office and say, so what are you up to here? And I don't even think that it's necessary to all of these get adopted. I'm just saying we have to have something that recognizes that we're part-time and we're not in a position to always know the information, so we got to address that too, so that the professional that we hire is aligned with our aspirations for as an elected official, and that the goals are specifically enunciated.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right over there? Just throw me in the car later.
I agree with absolutely everything that's been said. I'll say it again. I agree with absolutely everything that's been said. All good points. Back when I became a select board member, I thought it would have been very helpful to have an idea or an understanding of what the vision and the culture of the select board is. And I made a suggestion a couple weeks into my seat here that from the top down, there needs to be a vision and a culture that is set by the select board, that can permeate down through the entire org chart that gives everybody a fair opportunity to succeed. And then one may ask, well, sure, but there's turnover every 3 years with the select board. New people coming in, people leaving. Well, then you can amend the vision and the culture. But at the end of the day, I still think there needs to be a beacon by which the select board thinks everything through using that beacon. So this matrix we got, I see has goals, I see it has some objectives, I see it has some deliverables, and then I see it has some things that I would say, how do we want our town to feel? And that's important to me. I've always given great consideration in my past life to how people feel when they're at my business. And that goes, again, from the top down, select board down, through administration, through staff, through the public, and through the visitors who come here in the summer. So I would suggest, again, that we start, or at least in conjunction with our goals and objectives, we create some kind of mission, vision, culture statement for this board. Thank you.
Nominate Jeff to start the
Second.
draft on that. And then we'll kick it around.
Yeah, sounds
Okay.
good.
Nominate Michael and I to be a subcommittee.
And you have to do minutes, I don't think.
I don't want to do minutes.
I do agree.
At this point, you can't redelegate.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate your support, as always.
Madam Chair, there was a motion and a second.
Thank you.
I'm not gonna hold them to that, but come up with a mission.
What would be
Unless
the
you-
next step? Like, so we have goals and objectives, we had a discussion about it, now where do we go from here?
Another workshop.
So,
The Michael workshop.
well, I think with
Okay.
town meeting approaching, everybody can take the document. I'll share the other stuff that I looked at, just to give another overview of another way we could approach it, which I do believe some of them have mission statements, and, it's not a bad idea, right? So like have a focal point. And then we'll have that conversation, but then we have town meeting, and so I think having something in early June, although it's, it's a little later than we want, it is ideal because everything quiets down a bit. We can put some real thought into it, develop one document, and then use that to go forward.
Great.
So I'll think we should aim for that for like early June.
It's fantastic. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. On to the next
So there was a motion and a second to do what?
Point you to.
Oh, that was making you do
Oh,
your
oh, I see.
mission
You really want to vote on that?
No, we
Listen,
don't.
you mess around with motions, you gotta deal with
So-
the ones.
Thank you.
I don't think we have to take a vote on that.
No, I don't.
I think we'll spare you.
And the next item, yeah.
So, select board, so, let me just read it so everybody knows what we're
Yeah,
talking
sure.
about. Select board member Harwich to provide update on the Harwich Accessibility Rights Committee, HARC.
You got a bunch of things that I sent forward. I'm not expecting anything to actually happen as an action tonight. I'm just letting you know that. First and foremost, just so everybody knows that Danielle did send me the MGL. I tied it in to what's going on in the charge, but it is not their duty because we do not have a accessibility rights commission in this town. We never accepted that. So you can kind of allude to those goals and objectives. It does broaden things up in terms of both buildings and governance so that people can participate with audible disabilities or challenges for vision, which is a thing that I'm really interested in for the last 15 years. Because low vision is a really growing endemic on Cape Cod, especially with the aging of the population. The only fly in the ointment is it's consistent with the way we approved the golf advisory committee thing. Personally, I've said at the time, I really don't like that they have to respond to what we tell them. That's a bigger discussion. I don't necessarily feel like we have to have it tonight. But you got the charge. It's based on what we last voted, and whatever everybody wants to do is fine with me, but I think this nails what it is that everybody was looking to do. I did take out things that were regulatory that were our responsibility, like assigning an ADA official or something, because that's not their responsibility. And it never should have been in the charge. And it gets back to 5 instead of 7 so that they can actually meet.
Okay. So, well, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just gonna say, when we had it at 7, then we went back down to 5. First it expanded to 7.
Larry wanted 7.
Right, and we left it.
But then we
at
couldn't
7.
get a quorum, so
Right.
that you shoot yourself in the foot when you
Right,
expand.
so this brings it back down to 5, which is where we left it at
Mhm.
5. Okay. So why don't we, and sorry, I don't mean to
No,
cut you off, I'm just saying, in
whenever you're ready.
general, Dawn emailed this to everybody, so if everybody gets time to look at this, we can bring it back.
That's what I was looking for, is just have time
Yeah.
to actually put it on an agenda and have a real discussion about it.
So we could put it on next week.
But if it would be, I'd like to give Dawn some of my feedback, because
Sure. No, go ahead.
I had the time this afternoon.
Mhm.
And I'm glad we're not taking a vote on it tonight, because I wouldn't vote to support this charge as presented. But obviously, with maybe some clarification, I may. You just mentioned that it's consistent with the golf committee charge, which you voted no to
Yep.
support.
Yep.
So then, would you be voting no for the actual charge that you just presented?
Probably.
Okay.
I just feel that overall
So-
advisory committees we can't tell everybody what we know. That's the whole point of advising.
So I went back and I watched the October 2nd, 2023 meeting. Because as I read your charge, I thought exactly the same thing that you just brought up. It's exactly the same as the golf committee charge. However, and respectfully, I made it very clear, not once, not twice, but 3 times, that the golf committee charge that I was so lucky to have gotten the opportunity to write and be part of was specifically intended for the golf committee, and I'm not going to go down that road tonight, but it was specifically intended to put some guardrails up for a committee that you, on day 1, told me were having an awful lot of trouble staying in their lanes. So when I worked with people to craft that charge, I made it very clear to the board and the public and the committee that I didn't see this being the template for all other committees, because all other committees were not having the troubles that the golf committee was having. And since we've put the golf committee charge to rest and it's now up and valid, there's been other committee charges that have come before the board, and none of them have had that flavor that you are putting in front of us tonight. And, you know, for sure, you made comments about the charge regarding or relating to the golf committee about, when I want your opinion, I'll give it to you. That was part of your narrative on the 2nd of October. You cited the general provision of the Charter 7-2-1 as well as other provisions to confirm your case that the language flies in the face of the charter. So Don, as I sit here today, I find it wildly confusing that you would present a charge to this board that is pretty much exactly what you voted no on. And I don't understand for the life of me, respectfully, where you're coming from in the big picture. And then lastly, I will add that if I could get through all of what I just said, and I could come to some closure with it, to state that the majority of the members of the committee should be disabled is in this board member's opinion, and I would like to get legal thought on this, it sounds discriminatory to me. Because if we've got a person who is non-disabled before an interview committee looking to give their time to serve their town, and a criteria that I don't know, I can't speak for the rest of the board, but a criteria that you would be using to determine whether or not this person sitting in front of the interview committee is qualified to serve on that, on HARC, is no, because this person is not disabled? Let me just finish, it's coming up. I can't put my vote of support on something that sounds like that, regardless of whether it was legal gave us counsel that, no, you shouldn't do it or should do it. I don't think I could vote for something like that. So those are my thoughts, and I'm glad, thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing me to say those thoughts so that, as you put it, when I wrote the golf committee charge, you said, you're on your way and you're getting close. I would throw those words right back at you. You're on your way and you're getting close. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ironically, that last point, I absolutely agree with you because it doesn't seem like you read the prior charge. That was lifted from the existing charge. I don't think it's a good idea.
Well, then why'd you put it in there?
Because it was a rough draft to bring it in front of the board and see what everybody wanted to do. Personally, listen, Jeff, out of everybody sitting in here, I'm the chair of Site Law Services and have been for like 7 years. I care about disabilities. I used to read at the library to the blind 15, 20 years ago. Totally get what you're saying. There has to be a blend of people who are interested in this along with people who are affected by it. I'm not really interested in specifying that. Having said that, going back to your first point, I am disturbed about conflating membership with position. If there's a problem with the way that people are conducting themselves, that's not an organizational, positional problem. It's a person problem. And we appoint different people to do things. I just wanted to bring up the discussion about what an advisory committee is. And I still feel that you can't single out a particular committee because they're not functioning properly because of the people who are on it right now. And I would like that bigger discussion to occur at some point. I don't care if you take this out in the draft, but I just wanted to point out that that's the problem, is that it's not about who's sitting there, it's about how it gets conducted structurally. And I have no problem with taking out the instructional part. I certainly have no problem with taking out the, you gotta be a member of this group or we can't even appoint you, because I think that's absurd. The only organization I could think that pertains to is Board of Health, where you really do need people who have some sort of scientific background, and it's specified under Mass General Law that that be the case. But everybody else, all I care about is good intents.
May I?
Sure.
Sorry. I appreciate what you're saying. I think there's an awful lot going on here to unpack. I think to present a board with a charge that you don't believe in is a waste of your time and the board's time. That's what I believe there. If you don't like the fact that it states that the members should be disabled, then it was your responsibility, just like it was mine, to write a charge that we thought that the board would accept. I know that you care about, I was in the meeting with you when we interviewed for this specific committee. Clearly, it came across to all of us that you have a genuine interest in helping the people who are disadvantaged. I 100% get that. And if I can have a little latitude, Madam Chair, and cut me off if I'm going down the wrong road here, but there seems to be a theme. We have 3 male members looking to join the golf committee, and you mentioned to me that you wouldn't support one of them, even though he was a great candidate, because he's male. And you want to populate the committee with more women. Again, I can't look at somebody who's sitting down at a table and say, gee, you were really great, your interview was great. And if I'm going off track here with the agenda, then you let me know.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I think we should probably table that
Okay,
discussion.
thank you. Then I appreciate that, thank you.
Yeah.
But I don't know, Don, I don't know where to, I don't even know where to put this.
Well, I think to follow up to your comments, I think back to where we're talking about everybody taking a look at this, but now understanding that Don's not even comfortable with the charge.
With parts of it.
So then I would say, why don't you go back and do it to a point where you feel comfortable with it and bring it back That would make more
Why
sense.
doesn't everybody give me some input to be able to do that?
Well,
I'm blind
in terms
copies.
of giving us a charge, because we all have had committees where we've had to deal with the charge. So why don't you go back and look at the charge? We have your draft now. Go back to a point where you feel it's better, using somewhat of the template, and then give us another one. So we'll do that, we'll bring it back after town meeting, have that discussion, which would be the 13th of May, I think?
Yep.
Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So that gives a couple weeks in between to think about how you'd like to revise it to be something more amenable to what you would like it to see, and we can all have that conversation based on what it was, your original draft, and what you come back with. That makes more sense to me in the sense of how we all approached the various
I just want something you'd support.
charges, right. So I just think it makes more sense. And that gives you a couple of weeks in between. We're not in a hurry in that sense, but I don't think we need it in the next week or two with town meeting coming up, so. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. And then, speaking of town meeting, this is, Danielle gave us the list of articles, because we need to divvy them up. And so, I could just say, like, you know, you want to split them up by number, but there are certain categories that I think will be better covered by, you know, particular people who have been working on different things,
I'm
so.
gonna need a little more information about what you're talking about,
So.
just so I understand
Oh,
what you're.
thank God.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
The article.
We get
I
to
could've-
speak on behalf of these things.
Oh, I see, okay, okay.
So at town meeting, we all get assigned articles, and so I think in this scenario, I don't want to just say, you know, out of 60, whatever it is, 52, I've lost track at this point, 53, sorry, that we just divvy them up that way. You know, it would be easy to just say, let's just, you know, you take the top 15 or whatever, but there's different subject matters, so I'm just asking if everybody wants to give me a little feedback on articles they'd like to address, because I could certainly, yeah, Michael?
I'd like herring fisheries.
Yeah, then you get to leave.
And I will take all the CPC ones.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah,
Oh, but
great.
why?
That's so
Can we
wrong.
send this back to you?
So wrong.
What?
Nothing.
Can we respond to you, though, directly?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, why don't you, that's what I was
Email,
just gonna
yeah.
say, is so, rather than go through all of these now, why don't you all look through the list? Tell me the ones you're thinking you'd like to address, and then we can come up with a list, like I'll have it to everybody by the end of the week.
And would Pete be involved in this? I'm just asking because I
He's a
wouldn't
select
want-
person, isn't he?
I wouldn't want to be you.
Yes, of course he's
Okay.
involved.
I may not have agreed with your vote.
Understand. Thank you very much. Well done.
Talk about it.
Well done.
You do realize you do realize the assignments are not tethered to that. They're
That's good.
They're about the position of the board,
Sure.
not yours.
Good. right.
Michael?
I just want to put it on the record that I want herring fisheries
Twice?
first.
Twice?
Top bidder. Dibs.
I think it's important, so that we're not doing this back and forth thing again. You can all send what you want to Julie.
Right.
But in the end, she's gonna have to make an executive decision and bring it back to us, and you get what you get. We have always in the past horse traded. So if there's something that really means something, and then Don will normally stand up and say something that contradicts how I feel, so I have to stand up.
That's
So
true.
we all stand up anyway, right? So,
In fairness, actually, you or I actually fill in for other people when something starts going south, so it isn't quite that way.
I think for Pete and Jeff, it's just because a name gets put beside something doesn't mean you can't get up and speak about it.
No, and,
So,
yeah, and that's why I'm saying, why don't you go through the list, tell me the ones you want, and then I'll take that, and then just, to his point, assign whatever else no one picks. So, and then I'll have that list to you guys by, I would say by Friday.
And the chair is the speaker of last resort anyway.
Yeah, so that's excellent.
Go.
it's gonna make it easy for you. I'll take whatever you put my name beside.
Perfect.
And herring fisheries.
Okay.
So don't wait.
That message is very clear.
Don't wait for my email, because just
Oh.
give me what you want.
Perfect.
Okay, I'm fine.
That's great, I love that.
Doesn't matter.
Same, actually. Just
Okay.
never developed.
All right, so I'm just gonna go through the list, and
That's fine.
you can
That's
email
fine.
me and
Yeah,
Jeff.
I'll email you, sure. Can't wait.
Joe?
There's a related topic, but I didn't want to stop this back and forth for sure.
Please stop it.
So, Madam Chair, you may want to report out, but as you know, we had the motions meeting with the
Yes.
moderator, with council, with members of Finance Committee and other relevant staff back on April 12th. And I believe, Madam Chair, you might be able to give a better update than I could regarding Article 52, which is related to the vote tabulators,
Oh, yes, so
Count-
the electronic voting.
that
Yeah,
thing. Yep,
electronic
at town
voting.
meetings, because I know the moderator had a conversation with
Right.
you, and
So the moderator provided the electronic voting.
I believe it was
article.
52.
50,
Not on this list.
Oh, I apologize, 50.
on the electronic voting. And we didn't have a specific dollar amount attributed to that, but in the conversation that we had, without assigning a specific dollar amount, which we certainly could deal with in the future, but currently what the moderator will do is, because this is his article, he'll gauge the public on whether or not people are interested, similar, I would say, to the pool, right? And gauge the feeling on whether or not this is something people want to move forward on, and based on that, then we'll refer it back to the select board. And the only other piece of that, obviously, just procedurally, is he will have Bill Kroll cover his point on that, because obviously, as the moderator, he wouldn't be introducing an article on his behalf, so. So other than that, yeah, I think the motions meeting went well. There were a couple of things, and I know that Finance Committee's meeting, I believe it's tomorrow night. I have to check on that, but one of the items that I did ask specifically about was FinCom's motion to take $75,000 from fire's budget to increase the reserve, because I just wanted to understand historically if that had ever been done. And the moderator explained that it has not ever been done in his term, which is about 30 years. So there was that discussion, which I thought was important to let you all know. And then,
Can I just clarify?
Sure.
The 75 being put in under their control hasn't been done, or a motion on the floor to adjust it hasn't been done?
So they have moved, their motion
Right.
is to take the 75,000 from the budget and put it in to FinCom's
Right.
reserve.
Right.
Which then they offered to then set that aside specifically for fire, which isn't what they're supposed to do anyway, because it's a reserve, and so anybody can come to look for monies. And so ultimately, my question was whether or not that had ever been done, because a reserve is a reserve. And for instance, there's $50,000 in that reserve because no one has had to use it. So that, to me, speaks to pretty good budgeting by most departments. And I think there was somebody at our March meeting that mentioned that they, and I can't remember who it was, but some department mentioned that they may need some monies, and FinCom reminded them that they had some.
John
Rendon.
It was John,
It was
right?
John.
I was gonna say it was John,
Yep.
but I wasn't positive. And in any case, so the point is, if they want to increase the reserve, then they would ask to increase the reserve. Would it come from it shouldn't come from somebody's budget. And I was sharing that information because historically, I wondered, had that ever been done before? And the moderator said it had not, to his knowledge. So, that's one item. I don't know if they're talking about these things tomorrow night. I'm not quite sure. I was gonna follow up to see. I don't think I missed anything else on the motions meeting.
No, I think that was the only outlier, so to speak,
Yeah,
was how that was going to come together.
so, other than that, and I'll get back to you with the list. And then contracts, Joe.
Madam
Oh,
Chair,
yeah.
if I may, related to the warrant discussion. We did get an email from the Finance Director, Kathleen, thank you. And it said, final sources and uses with updated cherry sheets amounts. It was dated 4/16. I wonder if we could just get a brief explanation. We got the email, but the public has no idea what we went up on or what we went down on. So if you prepared just a brief, and the estimated receipts decreased and the assessments increased slightly, and that would be the other quick update for the public. I understand it and read it, but if you could just tell us, that would be great. No, if we could just go over that in your words, why did the, I guess specifically, why did the estimated receipts decrease? The assessments, I think I understand, but.
Point of information, Madam Chair. I understand where you're going with this, but still the public doesn't have anything like in their hands. In addition to that, can we have this as part of the packet, even if it's not an action item next week, so that they can actually see something?
That's up to Julie.
So, we had an email, and so we're just talking, and we can
Sure.
add that if we need to.
Kathleen Barrett, Finance Director. Yes, that was just a recent update. It's through the normal legislative process through the State House. As they work through the budgets, they make small adjustments, and DLS releases updates with numbers, and there's sometimes small adjustments up or down. And to be completely, transparent and accurate, just sent the slight update. They really are pretty nominal in changes. But yeah, I'd be happy to explain the exact difference. But overall, it wasn't like a material impact, but be happy to give you, put in writing the details.
I would love to have that, and to Don's point, in the packet for the public for next week. It is an update from our sources
Yep.
and uses that everybody saw and that we voted on. And then is there any thoughts on why, or the reason why the other part of that went down, the local receipts? What was the thought behind that? Just you looked at where they were and we reduced them?
I didn't change local receipts.
So, estimated receipts, sorry.
Oh, that's a component of the cherry sheet. There's the estimated receipts, and then there's the assessments.
Okay.
So it's what they give us and what we give them. It's the back and forth.
Thank you.
Okay.
Of course.
So that'd be great, thank you, Kathleen.
my
And then we
pleasure.
can add that info to the packet.
And then one more, if I may.
Sure.
Article 16, adopt the capital plan. I've said it for years, harmony is a great thing, especially at town meeting. And it seems that there is, and we witnessed it again tonight, angst because we zeroed out the lines for Brooks Academy. And I know at the time we did that, that was a board decision, not a town administrative decision. And Joe said it didn't matter to him one way or another what we did, that we were gonna have to go back and change the capital plan to do whatever we were going to do anyway. So if it still doesn't matter, and to cure some of the angst, why wouldn't we just, when we make a positive motion, because Finance Committee is not going to make it with a amendment to put the 175, 350, and 350 back on it, knowing that we're gonna have a much broader conversation and we don't have the money for the 175 this year. But if that is so important to the Finance Committee and so important to some others, it's funny that $2.5 million came off from golf and nobody said a word about it.
I want to bring that back.
Well, and that's the thing, do we take away 15, 20, 30, 45 minutes worth of debate on town meeting floor and just make the motion out of the gate to put it back on?
Well,
I'd just like to hear other board members' thoughts.
yeah, go ahead. Any member want to take it up? Don?
Being the party, the second part here, Madam Chair, I'd be fine. I'd switch my support for that, because the bottom line here is, and I've always said this, the plan is aspirational. It stands on its own. I mean, that's what our intent is. If we don't have the money, that's the second part of it. And if it's not getting funded, it's not getting funded. But to not have it at all, to zero it out, means that it just implies that it's not important enough to be in any of the 5 years. It's easy enough to explain. Yeah, we have it in here. It's still an aspirational goal. But as soon as we can find the money, we can do something about it. It's not going to be now or today. So for that, to your point, I have a feeling the Finance Committee would agree with that too, and I would.
Well,
Joe?
Just to respond to the opening item, if I could. The motion that was prepared, that Finance Committee will be making at town meeting, if I may read it.
Yes, please. Yep.
So their existing motion under Article 16, which is adopt the capital plan, is to move that Article 16 be accepted and adopted with the following changes to the fiscal year 2025 column as set forth in Appendix C of this warrant. Under the fiscal year 2025 column, add $1,160,000 to the facility maintenance 80 Parallel Street, parentheses, Brooks Academy, close parentheses, project. Add $2,500,000 to the golf irrigation update project, and add $1,500,000 to the Public Works road maintenance / improvements project. So, as the moderator reminded, Finance Committee makes the motions to start, so it would be an amendment to their main motion.
So, given that they're not making a positive motion on what we put forward, isn't the normal course for them not to make the motion and for the board to make a positive motion?
They are making a motion.
Or you can make a second positive.
So I believe the moderator has accepted that motion to be the primary motion. It is a positive motion in that it has a positive action. And I would just add, so that's my understanding of the answer from a parliamentary standpoint. I would like to add personally, the article title is called Adopt the Capital Plan. The Finance Committee supports the adoption of the capital plan. So to your sentiment earlier, I took comfort in that. The Finance Committee has a positive motion on the operating budget under Article 4. There are some other elements to it for sure, but they also have a recommendation for the capital outlay plan. The question of the dollar amounts, I don't agree with some of the statements that have been made, but those are my personal beliefs. But I believe the moderator would rule the main motion that I just read is the positive motion. So any action that reduces that would be a motion to amend the main motion.
Madam Chair, just a follow-up, the 1.160 million has never been talked about except for in this room. So capital outlay has never taken a shot at what Sean Libby came up with and gave. So that has not been vetted.
Right.
So if they're gonna put the capital plan back together because we took out those lines, isn't it more appropriate for it to be 175 and 25, 350 and 350? The 1.160 million didn't exist.
To the bottom.
That's from Joe.
Correct.
So, to my question, we're changing the amount, and we haven't vetted that. They're changing the amount, and it hasn't been vetted at all.
Well, and that's what I said earlier this evening, is that amount has not been vetted by capital outlay. So why would we move that amount? Don?
I think we can close in on some agreement here, because if they were to revert back on their motion, they haven't made the motion yet. We always are posted before the meeting to see if we could come together on things. If they reverted back to the original amounts, which is what you're suggesting, and they make a positive motion, then what you're saying all goes away. I mean, because it's premature, you're right. We haven't vetted the numbers, so why even go there? Just restore it to where it was. If they can agree to make that positive motion, we move on and we all agree.
Joe?
So the reference to the 1,160,000 not having been vetted, I don't believe that's accurate. Earlier this evening, when we had the facilities maintenance manager here, I was reading from his application for fiscal year 25 through 29, and it was for that 1,160,000. That was the number that capital outlay was working on throughout the fall. That was the number that was in the plan that you met jointly with Finance Committee on December 4th. The reduction of it was my act for discussion purposes for you. So I believe the 1.16 was vetted and was discussed.
Oh, all right. Well, I thought that they had not vetted the full
Me too.
0.1.
I would like to just get
Let's
clarification
confirm that.
from you as quick as I can on that, because my recollection of the capital plan that we met with Finance Committee on was 175, 350, and 350. I don't recall until you came forward late in the game. I don't recall the 1.160 number until Sean brought that forward. If it's been vetted, then great. But capital outlay, as far as I know, never voted to change the capital plan to take out the out years and make it 1.160, that I can remember.
If I may, Madam Chair?
Sure, go ahead.
My understanding is the Capital Outlay Committee, well, I'll try to say it more directly. Capital Outlay Committee was not involved in the presentation that I made in February with my draft budget and documents, where, based on the dollar amounts, I indicated there was not sufficient funding. But they did vet, and I have it here in the application, they did vet the 1.16 million. Because as you heard the maintenance manager talk about, we had the article approved last May 2023, both CPC and the additional monies. When we, as a entity, when managers and administrator start working for the next cycle, Sean and I talked about that as early as August. And that framed his presentation, I believe, to the Capital Outlay Committee in the fall. And if I could very quickly just grab it, if you'll indulge me for a moment.
It is there. I do, yeah. It's there. I do have it, Joe. It is there, I see it.
Why isn't, that's Sean Libby's recommendation.
And that's in the first,
That's 1 year, that's not.
yeah, but that's,
Yeah, I get it.
Can't we decide on this next week, though?
So if I could, the application that Facilities Maintenance Manager presented to Capital Outlay was October 26, 2023, and it was the 1.16 million amount.
okay.
So to sort of frame everything, again, Article 16 poses the question at town meeting of whether or not the plan should be adopted. Finance Committee recommends adoption. That's the first fact of their motion. The particulars are certainly subject to debate and potentially subject to amendment. But when I hear the phrase of harmony, I just wanted to, because that's what I had said to your chair at the conclusion of the motions meeting, that when you look at everything, there's a lot of conversation, and there should be, in my personal opinion, but Finance Committee is in agreement with the overall operating budget of the Select Board. That's a great fact to have, and that's borne out by the motion they have. Again, there are other elements to their motion, but they support the whole dollar amount. Bless you. The capital plan, because it's a plan, the numbers are the numbers. I've heard, your colleagues talk about what they believe that to be. Any one of you can have your comments about what they believe. What I was concerned about during the motions meeting was there going to be a motion under the subsequent articles that fund? And they indicated through their vice chair, I believe, Finance Committee does not intend to change any other funding motion. So, for me, as the chief architect as required by the charter of the capital outlay plan, my concern is, okay, we're adding dollar amounts, those dollars don't bounce. That's new for me. That's uncomfortable for me. And I look in the direction of a town accountant and finance director. I think in municipal finance, you want things to tie back, you want things to balance. Having said that, the moderator is aware of this motion and has indicated that he believes it's within the scope, so it can be done. So to go all the way back to it, I think if you wanted to achieve what you're looking for, you would make an amendment to change their numbers to the lower amount.
And with the information that it has been vetted by capital outlay, and the fact that we don't have the money to do it anyway, and that we're gonna have a meeting to figure out how we're gonna do it, then put it on the paper, in my opinion.
Jeff?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and, as I stated earlier this evening, I've clearly reconsidered because of new information that I've gotten, and it probably was my error that the information that I had received wasn't processed correctly by me. There's a lot, for sure, but I would support, Don, what you said, and I like where we're going with this in the big plan of harmony, and yeah, well, I do that again there. That was, yeah, I'd support it.
I missed it, and I think I'm glad I
Yeah,
did.
I would urge you, Madam
It's an
Chair,
old
not.
moment.
Yeah, I would support that for sure.
Madam Chair, if I could, with this open discussion. So what is the sense then of the the select board of what motion you would support under Article 16. So I've made reference to the main motion that the moderator's aware of, that has been prepared by administration at the direction of the moderator. And you've talked about essentially reducing that. Finance Committee is looking to add 1.16, 2.5.
Right.
And 1.5 to the capital outlay plan, the document itself. I asked the question at the motions meeting, it was confirmed, is this a gambit, my words, by Finance Committee to preserve their right to have a straight majority vote in the fall? And the response from Finance Committee was yes. So it's a procedural act, and I mean that as a positive statement, not a negative. So what is the sense of the board on that matter?
Look, go ahead.
I just want to ask, are we talking about just,
We're just talking about Article 16.
right, but just Brooks Academy, or are we also contemplating golf and Chapter 90?
So their motion contemplates all three.
It does.
Being put into the plan.
That's all I wanted to understand.
Yeah, they want to put back the $2.5 million for golf, and they want to put back in the $1.5 for public works road maintenance. Both have agreed that they don't mind it waiting. So did you want to?
I didn't, well, I don't mean to interrupt, but, and further, they're not contemplating, as of April 12th, subject to change perhaps,
Right.
but there are no other motions that appear with any other articles to then seek to fund those projects.
Right.
So as long as that holds true,
So they're
what
just
it's worth, I'm okay with that.
plugging it back into the plan.
Quick
So-
question, if I could?
Yeah.
Did you say their recommendation is for FY '25 or '24?
No, fiscal
We're
year
in 24,
'25. They
okay.
want to change the plan in fiscal year '25. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Don?
And perhaps I was inarticulate with this whole thing when we had it originally, but that was what I was saying. There needs to be no two-thirds vote if this plan is adopted and within the same fiscal year, we come up with funding at another future point. You just already agreed to the capital plan. All it takes is a straight-up majority then to fund it later on. There is no amendment to the capital plan if it's done this way,
May I?
within the same fiscal year.
And there's no potential risk of losing the funding at a fall town meeting if the funding from free cash is there?
That's up to town meeting.
Always, well, I'm saying there's nothing now that.
Procedurally, there's nothing that's going to...
Procedurally, okay.
So,
I didn't get an answer to my question.
so
Not
basically,
yet.
And a tonight from me.
Thank you.
so,
I asked my question, I got my answers, and I don't have to make this decision tonight,
okay,
so.
And that's helpful as well. Thank
that's
you.
good. I think everyone, let
With
that
all that
roll
new
around your
information, I would
brain.
like to process it.
Yeah, perfect. Let it roll around your brain.
I do think
Another-
town meeting would be very interested in tonight's conversation, where our professionals stood up and basically said that we don't have a clue where we're going, and now we do, but we still don't have an idea, even to his words tonight, we still don't have an idea of actual costs and the procedure. So to stand up at town meeting and make any motion to fund something that is a runaway train, to Don's point, we need to have that meeting first. So I would love to have that debate on town meeting floor, and we could put 50 million on the capital plan for Brooks Academy if we would all like, because it's just a number on a piece of paper at this point.
Well, I guess that was kind of my original point when we first talked about all this, is we're gonna go to town meeting with a number that we know we can't fund. So to me, it doesn't make a lot of sense. You can put whatever you want on the capital plan. If you can't pay for it, I don't understand it. So to me, I feel like, we're trying to be super transparent, and we're being accused of the opposite. But I'll leave it at that tonight, and everybody else can just think about it and go from there, so. Then the contracts.
Madam Chair, if I could, before a motion's made, what we're looking for is specifically for the board to accept the lease agreement and authorize the chair to sign.
I move that we approve a one-year lease agreement with Seacoast Harley Davidson in the amount of $5,000 for a motorcycle for the police department, and we authorize the chair to sign.
Second.
Only if I get to use it.
I'll be driving it.
I have the license.
So did you second? Yeah, moved and
Second.
seconded. Any discussion?
Quick question, if I
yeah,
could,
sure.
yeah. Is this typical practice of a one-year lease for a motorcycle for the police department?
In this particular instance, it is because it's essentially, it's a quasi-donation. We would never be able to get that motorcycle at that value if we went straight through 30B. So the lease agreement for that dollar amount is with that. And we've done it town has done it on several occasions. I believe we do it at least every other year.
And so we lease this for 1 year, and then what?
I'd have to defer to the chief on that. I don't know if there's a turn-in program, and I don't know that it's just for 1 year. It may be 1 year to start and future years. Essentially, I believe this is being somewhat treated as a gift.
I'm not gonna hold it up, but I'd like to have a little more information on the future use of this motorcycle and how we proceed.
So, Madam Chair, if I could, I think given the timeframes that are in this, it's appropriate if you hold off on the
My
vote
second.
and have the chief or the deputy speak to it. They don't need this until June, so we
I
can.
remove my motion. I'll remove the motion. Sure.
I'm not going to remove my desire to drive it.
Well, I don't have any whiteout, and I already signed.
Again, I don't plan on holding it up, I just
I'm
would like
only
to be clear.
So
take
that's
you for a
fine,
ride
so
on
you
I
can
don't
have
wanna
the chief come talk to us about it next week or whenever he can make it. Let's see. The town administrator's report.
Mercifully for you all, I'm back from a lovely staycation with a clean garage, therefore I have no town administrator's report.
Thank you. Don?
Yeah, relative to what appears next, and I have to say that I was under a misconception when Roman came in and started talking about the revolving fund, and it was only dedicated to inventory in the pro shop. That kind of made me rethink, and I believe I talked to you about this, Michael, at one point. If we've got general receipt money in different buckets that we contemplate using for maybe paying off bond anticipation notes or whatever, so that we don't have to borrow a huge amount, and this funding source in a given year is what they got in there. I have been asking, and I will once again ask for administration, both parties, to give me 5 years worth of what's going in it, where it was coming from, and what's come out of it. And I think it's incumbent upon us, because we're the people who oversee the budget. And I think it's something we really would like to see at some point, and it's a dynamic discussion about historically we've had this much came out in 19, this much went in 19, we spent it on so-and-so, and then 20 and 21. I don't think it's an unreasonable request, and certainly as a particular board member, I'd like it myself, and I'm pretty sure everybody else would at some point. So I'm reiterating that I would like to see that number after town meeting.
Anybody else?
I have nothing.
I'd just like to say thank you to Cindy Williams for her unbelievable effort. And you pulled it off for the Toast of Harwich, the 21st Annual Toast of Harwich. Did a fantastic job, and, you know, it was really a fun night had by all.
I know I'm not supposed to talk during your report, but I also then would like to thank our auctioneer who made it extremely lively. I'm sure Mr. Galvin is covering it in the paper this week. And if any of you follow our YouTube channel, there is a video of the evening. Great job, Jeff. Thank you so much. I've already asked him to do it for next year.
Excellent. That's good.
Thank you.
Don?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I don't want to waste the opportunity on behalf of the whole board. Dan had his party from the water wastewater superintendent's position on Friday. I'd like to observe on behalf of all of us that this is one of the highest quality human beings we've had working in this town. He was a terrific individual, a terrific manager, and we all wish him well.
Thank you, Don. Pete?
I'm good.
Motion
And,
to adjourn?
I
Second.
didn't say my part.
Oh, sorry.
Jeez.
This better be good now.
What is that, 1-0?
Now I'm just gonna say forget it.
Please zoom in on the chair.
Happy birthday, Julie.
No, you're not supposed to say that.
talking about
It's
your
your
birthday.
I called Dan, that's where I was going with this. I called
Yeah, I
Dan
was
to
there when you
to
did.
congratulate him as well, and to say how much we will miss him, because we will miss him terribly.
Absolutely.
And he's done a fantastic job, so that's all I wanted to say.
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.